For years, we've been told the global AI race is all about algorithms, parameters, software engineering. But if we look at the intelligence coming out of 2026, that narrative, it's completely dead.
Right, exactly. What we're unpacking in today's explainer honestly reads like a geopolitical thriller. The AI race is now fundamentally bounded by the physical layer of our global economy. And let me tell you, it is under active, highly sophisticated attack. We're moving way beyond cyberspace now. We're talking about multi-gigawatt data centers, massive transmission grids, and the critical mineral pipelines that actually make AI possible.
Just think about March 2026. Right in the middle of the US-Iran conflict, retaliatory drone strikes physically hit 3 separate Amazon Web Services facilities in the UAE and Bahrain. We're talking actual structural damage here, severed grid connections, localized service outages. This is a massive paradigm shift. Commercial data centers, the literal buildings hosting everything from your favorite streaming services to global corporate banking, they've officially become strategic kinetic military targets. It's wild. The cloud is now a kinetic target. We really have to just completely shatter this illusion of an ethereal, untouchable digital realm. The cloud isn't in the sky. It's heavily fortified buildings, massive cooling towers, and miles of copper wiring sitting right in the middle of very real, very vulnerable geopolitical hotspots. So, let's dive right into Section 1, the silent sabotage. Think back to pre-2025. Our whole security paradigm was entirely focused on remote network intrusions, right? Stopping ransomware, blocking data exfiltration, building better software firewalls. But look at our post-2026 reality. The primary threat focus now includes direct physical destruction, drone strikes, and literal grid-level sabotage. It's a forced evolution. Today, survival doesn't just mean having killer antivirus software. It literally means installing drone defense systems and seriously looking at small modular nuclear reactors, SMRs, just to ensure your data center doesn't instantly go dark when the local power grid gets hit. And the whole reason these commercial targets are being hit comes down to something called dual-use coupling. Basically, hyperscalers and local data centers are increasingly hosting both civilian commercial services and defense-relevant operational workloads under the exact same roof. You might have civilian hospital records running on a server rack that is directly adjacent to military drone logistics. Sure, they are logically separated by software, but they share the exact same physical enclosure, the same power distribution, the same cooling systems. So if a hostile state actor targets that facility to cripple military intelligence, all that civilian economic activity, it becomes catastrophic collateral damage. Exactly. And state actors are actively pre-positioning cyber weapons inside this physical infrastructure right now. It's what military analysts call operational preparation of the battlefield. For instance, we're seeing the PRC-linked group Volt Typhoon maintaining covert access to U.S. water and energy systems, literally just waiting for a geopolitical crisis to trigger major disruptions. And over in Europe, it's estimated that 115 gigawatts of Chinese-manufactured solar inverters contain backdoors. Disabling just a tiny fraction of that capacity could trigger a widespread grid collapse.
Yeah, and it's not just the infrastructure grids either. Russian state-sponsored groups, like Sandworm, are actively infiltrating pharmaceutical and motor vehicle manufacturing plants. They aren't just in there stealing data, they're actively preparing to sabotage the physical world.
Which brings us to Section 2, the cyber arms race. So the threat landscape has fundamentally changed. We aren't just dealing with code anymore. We are dealing with agentic AI. Attackers have moved way past using static, pre-programmed scripts. They are now deploying autonomous software agents that can reason, adapt to our defenses in mere milliseconds, and actually deceive human security teams. These systems make decisions based on their own judgment, and honestly, they are relentlessly creative in finding ways to complete their objectives. A perfect example is the Chinese GTG 1002 campaign. To me, the speed is what's absolutely terrifying here. These AI agents executed 90% of the attack completely autonomously.
Well, I actually have to disagree with you there. For me, it's the stealth. They used decentralized bot swarms, or HIVNets, for micro-exfiltration. They broke the data down into thousands of tiny, completely normal-looking packets just to bypass security filters. And then they utilized Byzantine data poisoning to actively feed false telemetry to the human defenders. So they didn't just move fast, they literally made themselves invisible.
That's a fair point, but it brings us to a massive strategic question. Is the primary threat algorithmic supremacy, or is it physical infrastructure control? In April 2026, Anthropic disclosed that their frontier model, Claude Mythos, could autonomously discover thousands of zero-day vulnerabilities and write complex exploit sequences without any human help at all. That is the definition of algorithmic supremacy. But here is the catch. To run an AI that powerful, you absolutely need multi-gigawatt, highly vulnerable physical data centers. The algorithms are the weapon, sure, but the physical infrastructure is the absolute choke point. Let's look closer at that in Section 3, the strategic bottleneck. $660 billion. Think about that number. That is the massive capital expenditure committed by just the top 5 hyperscalers in 2026 alone. But here's the reality check. They are slamming full speed into the limits of the physical world. All the money in the world literally cannot buy materials that simply do not exist. Let's break down these terrifying supply chain realities, because it's like a giant puzzle with missing pieces. First up, copper. Every single megawatt of data center capacity requires 27 tons of copper for wiring and cooling. 27 tons. Data centers are out there actively outbidding traditional industries for it. Second, helium. It's absolutely critical for cooling silicon wafers. After strikes in Qatar, which controls a third of the global supply, spot prices doubled overnight, forcing fabs to actually ration their supply. And third, the power grid. In the US alone, there is a 2,100 gigawatt interconnection queue. Data center developers are facing 3 to 7 year delays just to connect to the grid. Scarcity is, without a doubt, now the most powerful force in the tech industry. And the scariest part is that the scarcity is being systematically weaponized. Take a look at this timeline tracking China's export control escalation. It all started with laying a legal foundation back in 2020. Then it moved to restricting antimony in 2024 and quickly escalated in 2025 to restrict 7 heavy rare earths that are critical for high-tech magnets. But the absolute climax of this whole strategy was the October 2025 mandate. They introduced an extraterritorial rule requiring licenses for any foreign-made product containing even 0.1% of Chinese origin rare earths. Beijing has essentially extended its regulatory authority across the entire global supply chain. 97%. Just to put that into perspective, when those export restrictions on antimony hit, global supply plummeted by 97% and prices tripled almost overnight. This isn't just policy. This is absolute precision geopolitical leverage. Right, and in response to this, Western nations are scrambling. They're trying to forge this new axis of cooperation to bypass the chokehold. Australia is stepping up scaling midstream processing and producing dysprosium. Saudi Arabia is leveraging its massive Jebel seed deposit, actually partnering with the U.S. Department of Defense on a new refinery. Meanwhile, Japan is heavily investing in deep-sea extraction and tech sharing. But let's be real here. Building a fully independent mine-to-magnet supply chain takes years. Even with all this effort, meaningful independence is still at least a decade away. Okay, so what do we do? That brings us to our final section, Section 4, securing the physical layer. If your organization is relying on digital infrastructure today, there are exact mitigation steps you need to take to decouple civilian operations from military targets. Number 1, you have to mandate extreme geographic dispersion. You must have tested multi-region failovers in place.
Number 2, invest in energy independence. If the grid goes down, you absolutely need on-site power. We're talking small modular reactors or something similar.
3, audit your entire supply chain. You have to know the physical origin of all critical hardware. It's the only way to avoid foreign backdoor vulnerabilities.
And finally, number 4, implement behavioral tracking. Traditional identity management simply doesn't work against AI swarms. You must track the behavior of autonomous, non-human identities on your network in real time.
For the last decade, we built the digital world to be as fast and cheap as possible. Everything was about optimization. But in this shadow war of 2026, optimization is a luxury. Resilience is mandatory. So we'll leave you with this to think about. Is your infrastructure built for efficiency, or is it built for survival?